sometimes it's not corruption, man. Sometimes it's not corruption. Sometimes it's just the cost of bureaucracy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the On the podcast.
Am I allowed to swear in here?
In Sweden.
Yeah, I know we said let's not blame the government.
It's just sad when we start them
No,
becoming
but-
indoctrinated. Your view on me.
Welcome back to another episode of the On the Contrary podcast with me, your Tobias. Very exciting, interesting conversation we about to have today. Headlines. It's very big headlines for what I believe to be a very small case of what do you call this thing? Supposed corruption or apparent corruption. Department of Education in Mpumalanga bought 22 laptops for 2 million rand, more or less 2 million rand, making those laptops about 91,000 rand each. At first glance, when I first heard the story, that does not sound that bad to me, and I'll explain why. But before I do, it's interesting that I know personally 2 million sounds like a lot of money. And any amount of money stolen should be an issue. But there is no way that so many news people are picking up this case when there are other more egregious things happening out there. And then it's like, yo man, there must be a reason why this thing is out like this. It might be someone has something against the Premier or the MMC or the MEC of education there. Because the story is really not that big. Not to say that there's no corruption going on here. But here's the thing. Here's why the corruption might not be where we think it is in this thing. Because in my understanding of how some of these tenders or RFPs and RFQs work, this is a pretty regular occurrence. So here was my first conclusion. Here was my first thought in this thing, was that because the information is coming out little by little and I'm offering this view before the full report has come out. Ne? So 22 laptops for 2 million rand, 91,000 rand each. Here's the issue why these things happen like this and why suppliers tend to boost the prices like that. Because unfortunately, if you didn't know, government and state-owned entities and agencies and all these things, you can't just walk into a macro with a credit card and buy a laptop. There's a lot that has to go into it. And these exorbitant prices, some take it too far, but these exorbitant prices for coffee, toilet paper, and so forth, and laptops and cell phones might just be, or is just, the cost of the bureaucracy. Where in the perfect world, if I guess we trusted officials and politicians enough, we would just tell them, yo bruh, go buy the thing, we'll check afterwards. But because the buying power of the government is so much, they need to have a strategy on how to use that buying power to uplift certain groups, or I can hear every forum in my ear, to uplift women, youth, previously disadvantaged people, people with disabilities, small businesses, big businesses. So they try and segment how they spend the money to uplift as a means to uplift the economy as well. But now because of that, you need to build in bureaucracy, paperwork, red tape into the thing in order to be able to achieve those goals. In addition, there's a cost. Another cost of bureaucracy is the, what's this word? Auditability of the processes. Now, because we're going to need to be able to make sure that no one is stealing, we now need to add in certain hurdles, more red tape, so that if anyone is stealing, we know. But sometimes those things that we put in place to make sure no one is stealing is costing more than if someone was stealing. For example, let's say I needed to buy 22 laptops. I go buy 22 laptops from my friend. Ne? I buy those 22 laptops from my friend, and those laptops cost $1 million, let's just say. I could go to jail, or I could be fired for going to my friend to buy the laptops. Let's say there's nothing wrong with the laptops. Let's say I get kickbacks, or I'm stealing, or whatever the case may be. Sharp. But now that I have to go and make suppliers go through so many hoops, and especially experienced suppliers go through so many hoops to acquire these things, and to acquire them, to supply them, deliver them to the government agency. This is not only South Africa, this happens in America also. There's a whole movie about it called Gods of War, I think, with Jonah Hill and one other funny person. It's a movie about tenders, but tenders specifically in military supplies. Now, if I'm a supplier, why would I hike the prices? It seems like I'm all over the place, but I'm still here. One of the reasons why I would hike my prices the way I do is because once I supply this thing, and sometimes not just tea and coffee, or if they're buying tea and coffee, it's 20,000 Rand worth of tea or coffee, cost-wise. That's going to be 20,000 capital that I'm going to have to take out to buy the stuff from Macro, to buy the stuff from ShopRite, and deliver it to you. Let's say I quoted you 25,000, I'm making 5,000 Rand, which I guess is reasonable. Making 5,000 Rand off something that cost me 20,000. Now what happens in government? Because of this built-in bureaucracy, you're gonna take me 3 months to pay. You're gonna take 3 months to pay me. I can't sustain a business like that. The thing that will make it worth it for me, and me anticipating, although they're supposed to pay me in 30 days, me anticipating that you're gonna pay me in 3 months. Sometimes you pay me early, sometimes you pay me 6 months. Let me double the price. It's gonna be worth it to me to sell you 20,000 Rand worth of coffee for 40,000 Rand because you took 6 months to pay me. And a lot of times, the additional processes that you have to follow for the government paying you late and adding interest on that, it's crazy. You're not allowed. In some cases also, even if you do charge the government interest, you're not allowed to keep the interest. The interest goes, I don't know where. I've heard the story somewhere. The interest doesn't even come to you, because if you collect interest on money that's owed to you, that turns you into a financial institution, and you are not a financial institution. Now, all these suppliers, especially, I'm not talking about tenders and projects, I'm talking about supply and delivery, small jobs. All it is because the government can't go into a shop themselves and swipe a card and buy a thing online, get it delivered. No, they can't do that. They need a supplier who will be able to give the capital, because the government generally does not pay before the work is done. So what happens is, I need to have the money. Whoever the supplier was of the 22 laptops needed to have the money, unless they have a deal with their supplier. Let's say it was 20,000 Rand laptops. You need at least 600,000. Let's do the calculations, even though I'm doing hypotheticals divided by 22. Let's say it was 30,000 Rand laptops that came with, I guess, a mouse and a laptop bag. The other important thing, before we all can really carry on with this thing is, what were the specs of the laptop? Because I know 90,000 Rand laptops. They are there, it's not rare. Let's say the laptop is 80,000 Rand. A MacBook Pro can go for that amount. MacBook Pro 16-inch, M4 with a terabyte hard drive. Yeah, it can go for that. So the red flags aren't the red flags in this case. We are jumping because we're thinking of 2 million Rand in our own account. But sometimes when you're going to go out to buy something, tissue, coffee, paper, you need to follow such a long process to go get those things. So here's how it works. And if anyone is interested in maybe thinking about doing these small supply and delivery type contracts or jobs from the government, tenders, I think it's not actually tenders because amounts under 2 million, before that, sometimes amounts under 1 million do not need to follow a tender process. So here's what happens with the RFQ. Okay, cool. I'll bookmark this thing. It's bookmarked here so that we can know I'm starting to explain how a RFQ works. So what the company will say is like, hey, we need toilet paper. We need 100 toilet papers for next month. We need to go out into the market and get quotations for toilet paper. Now, you need to know what type of toilet paper you need, whether it's going to be 1 ply, whether it's going to be 2 ply, and whether it's going to be, I don't know how else you can describe the specs, the specifications of toilet paper. So I need 2 ply toilet paper, and I need 100 toilet papers. And I want it to be delivered by the 10th of June. Cool. You have to go out, send out emails to possible suppliers and request them for quotation. Now, in the process, all you need is to get 3 quotations back from anyone. This doesn't have to be openly advertised because it's a small amount. You can go to people that you've worked with before. You can check on the government database for suppliers and request from a few people, yo, how much would you charge me for 100 2-ply toilet papers? Ne? Then supplier 1 can say, I'll charge you 1 Rand per toilet paper. Supplier 2 can say, I charge you 1.50 Rand for toilet paper. And supplier 3 can say, I charge you 100 Rand per toilet paper. Ne? No one in that thing is wrong, except maybe the person charging 1 Rand is probably, so let's say it's 1 Rand, 10 Rand, and 100 Rand. There we go. Person 1 says 1 Rand, person 2 says 10 Rand, person 3 says 100 Rand per toilet paper. Person 1 might be the clown who is undercharging himself, making his business suffer, didn't consider all the small things of driving around, going, picking up the stuff, paying someone to go deliver the thing. They didn't factor in all those things. Now you're supplying something to the government and they chose you, and sometimes they'll choose you because you are the cheapest one. They chose you because you're the cheapest one, but now you lose. That's going to make you wiser the next time you apply for these things and realize, no man, I can't be charging 1 Rand per toilet paper. This thing should at least be 3 Rand or should at least be 4 Rand. Then you get Mr. 10 Rand, who seems to be a reasonable person, seems to be charging fairly, adding a bit of markup for him to be able to make a living and get through the month. It is slightly more expensive than what you would pay at ShopRite for 2-ply toilet paper, considering I had to do the work, I had to fill out quotations, I had to print out these things. I'm running an office, I need to put a bit of a markup on my supplies, and also I'm putting up the capital. So I factored all those things in and stayed not too far off of the regular market price of the item. That person is also good price, but he's still losing to number one at this point. Then you find the guy who's selling toilet paper for 100 rand. He just says, government has money, I'm going to make it 100 rand. Make it 100 rand because I can, and it's my company. And he also is not wrong. It's definitely too high, and there's a problem. Now, they evaluate all three of these quotes and they realize, okay, cool, number one is the cheapest, then number two, then number three. Then they go into the paperwork. Is your company registered? Do you have tax clearance? All these things. Sometimes P certificates, but P certificates aren't the thing anymore, mostly, since the court ruling in 2023. So, no PE. So, is your company registered? Do you have tax clearance? Do you have a copy of the ID of the director? Now you find this guy that charged 1 rand. This guy that charged 1 rand, who's so reasonable, and he refuses to overcharge because he has morals. This guy doesn't have a tax clearance. He doesn't even really know if his company is registered, and is not even able to offer a real proof of bank account or whatever the case may be. So now, even though your thing was 1 rand, we can't choose you. We can't choose you. You don't have a company, bruh. Now, 1 rand is out. Now we're paying 10 rand. 10 rand is already a little bit over, but it's way more reasonable than paying 100 rand. Now, let's say we're supposed to end up with number 2. Here's the issue sometimes with number 3, who's charging 100 rand per toilet paper. Number 3, all the paperwork is in order. Number 3 has a proper business profile. You know they know what they're doing. You know you're going to get your stuff on time. They're not going to nag you to pay them. They're easy to work with. But the issue with that one is, which raises flags, is that because of all these systems in place about getting 3 quotes, choosing the cheapest one, he's not supposed to be able to get it, especially if everyone else's paperwork is in order. But usually the guy charging 100 rand, is a red flag for insider tip-offs or trading, or some people who have been corrupted in the process to say, yo, charge 100 rand, I'll make sure it gets through. So normally that's the tip-off. But before you accuse anyone of just corruption, like the 22 laptops, it might just be that everyone else who quoted didn't have paperwork in order. There was no malfeasance. The thing was processed nicely. And you were the only one that made it through all the red tape. And because you understand that red tape is so difficult, you're going to have to wait 6 months to get your money. You've been called 3 times to resubmit a quote. You need to assign resources now to what's in this thing. You're like, you know what? This thing's only going to be worth it if I do it for 100 rand, because I want to get paid for dealing with the stress of doing business with government. Then, here's another issue here's where the issue might really be. When you want to go out into the market and buy 100 toilet paper, you know more or less that a toilet paper each is 5 rand. And you would have to set a budget for yourself to say, I want to go buy 100 toilet papers and I'm budgeting 5 rand for the toilet paper. Now the issue might be, if you budget 5 rand for the toilet paper, no one is going to respond and charge you 5 rand for the toilet paper. So if no one responds within your budget, you need to start over and then adjust your budget. Let's say, put it out 5 rand per toilet paper for 100 toilet papers. Everyone is over. The one that's under doesn't qualify, it's not a real company, or the company is not registered. And you're like, okay, cool. Maybe people need to put up their markup. You say 600 rand. Let me make it 6 rand a toilet paper. That should be fair for delivering whatever. No one pulls through. So what you do is you put a reasonable or above reasonable budget so that you can, people are cutting grass here, so that you can make sure the things go through at least. So in order for this thing to have been able to go through, they would have been needed to have budgeted more than that 2 million for it to be able to go through. Don't know if any of this makes sense, but if you're catching here and there, thank you for watching this far. Now, specifically about this case, in this Sunday Times article that came out about the 22 laptops for 2 million rand, is that the way the supplier was chosen is that the supplier was on a supplier panel or whatever you call it. And what this is a company knows that we buy laptops often, we buy toilet paper often, we buy paper often. So to make these things faster, because also when you want to go and buy toilet paper, you need to put out the request for 5 days, and then you need to give the supplier so many days to respond to you, and you just wanting to buy toilet paper can take 3 to 4 weeks. So sometimes in order to shorten this thing, what they will do is they will appoint, or they'll do a process where they'll appoint a panel of suppliers for a specific thing. So you will go out and let everyone know we're looking for suppliers who can supply these types of things: toilet paper, toilet brushes, domestos. That's what we're looking for. Tens or hundreds of companies will then submit their profiles and portfolios and their tax clearance documents and their company documents, and the company will then choose 5 people to make up the panel. And they say, if we need anything quick, we will approach these 5, and we've already done the background red tape processes so we can go to them straight. Now, there's another type of agreement on how some people can charge for stuff, because you can make your markup. Sometimes you have to make your markup clear. Sometimes if it's just a open RFQ or request for quotation, I can charge you whatever I want. But normally in these panels, when you appoint them, you say to them, you go out and stock stuff for us, and on your invoice you will show us exactly how much you paid. You will even have to show us proof of invoices of where you bought the stuff, and then you are allowed to add a 20% markup on whatever you said. So that's normally how a panel works, which is not something I knew before. I made assumptions about this not being a real red flag for corruption or whatever. But in a panel, they will need to show we actually paid so much for the laptop, and we only added the agreed upon 10, 15, 20% markup on those things. So the real thing, before we can even really say anything, is to find the, what you call it, the price or the specs or the actual laptops that they got. That being said, no CEO needs a high spec laptop. No CEO needs a high performance. No senior manager or whatever the case may be needs such a high performance laptop if you're not in IT, if you're not doing graphics, if you're not doing animation. Because all you do in an office is PowerPoint and Word and Outlook. You don't need such a big laptop. But normally in the policies, it's the senior employees or the management are allowed to have better cell phones or better laptops when they don't even need a laptop that good. But junior people, where you're in the graphic design department or you're architect or you're in IT, but because you're a junior, you cannot have a high-spec laptop because the policy doesn't allow for you to have such an expensive laptop, even though you are the only one in the company that needs such a high spec laptop. Another story. That's the thing about being in management. You don't really understand what's going on down there. You're just setting goals and ticking them off. Yeah, so once we know the actual laptop that they got, it might answer a lot of questions. Then also, they must tell us what the request was, man. What the request was. Anyway, let's chat in the comments. Let me know if you know anything about tenders and RFQs and RFPs and how they work and what your experience has been. And let me know if this is a business that you would be keen to take part in. You know, supply toilet paper. Like, let me just look for tenders for toilet paper. It's easy. I have 2,000 Rand here. I'll buy 2,000 Rand of toilet paper and then supply it to the government whenever they need it and sell 200 Rand worth of toilet paper. Tell the 200 Rand toilet paper each. Yeah. No, man. Sometimes it's not corruption, man. Sometimes it's not corruption. Sometimes it's just the cost of bureaucracy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the On the Turn podcast.
Am I allowed to swear there?
In Sweden.
Yeah, I know we said let's not blame the government.
It's just sad when we start them becoming indoctrinated.
Your view on me.